Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM, Channel 141. This is the Inside segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Tonight, we're taking a hard look at the latest federal government shutdown and what it means for the workers and families caught in the middle. Thousands of federal employees across the DMV are once again bracing for missed paychecks, wondering how to keep up with rent, childcare, and everyday expenses. The financial pressure is real, and so is the toll it takes on mental health. We're joined by financial and mental health experts to break down the impact, talk about coping strategies, and share resources that can help workers weather the storm. My guests are Dr. Vanessa Weaver, an organizational psychologist. Dr. Weaver specializes in helping organizations and workers navigate emotional and psychological impacts of change. And of course, Muriel Garr, business and financial expert. She's also host of the podcast Beyond the Bling. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this issue. Unfortunately, here we are again.
Again.
Yes, indeed. Before I do get started, I did want to let our listeners know that we do have some financial resources that have been posted on our website on WHUR.com. So please go to our website if you are looking for some resources or support that can help you through this process, whether it lasts a day or weeks. We want to make sure that we're here to help people. Let me first talk about some of the financial impacts of this. Muriel, what do you believe are some of the most immediate financial strains that furloughed workers are likely to face should this shutdown linger for more than a week or so?
Well, the interesting thing is the shutdown is occurring at the end of the month, right? At the end of the month after school has started and right before the holiday, and people are trying to figure out what financial obligations they're going to actually address, because if you've stated, they don't know how long it's going to occur. House notes or rent, car payment or lease payment, groceries, three major hits. And unfortunately, because of the economic time that we're in, telling people that they need to save 6 months to 9 months of resources in the event of an emergency sounds good when you got it. But particularly in the DMV, based on what our citizens have experienced since January, that's pretty difficult. And so all of that has a huge impact on decisions that individuals need to make right now, today, because they're no longer truly in control of what revenue is coming into their household based on their primary just over broke, i.e. job. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And many of us are living paycheck to paycheck. So, that kind of balancing act you were just talking about is so real.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you put it in that particular context, Muriel, because I was just thinking last night, I got an email reminder, your car insurance is due next week. Okay. I don't work for the federal government. And so these are not necessarily concerns of mine, thank God. but then I was just reminded, putting myself in the position of a federal government worker with one of those good government jobs, although now, we can talk about that a little bit later, but all of a sudden you get this email reminder, hey, your car insurance is due. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you're not going to get a paycheck. And let's just say, for argument's sake, let's say you get a paycheck this week, but you don't know how long this is going to go on, and that you may not have one in 2 weeks, Muriel. And so all of a sudden you have to make decisions.
But Harold, and we look at it that way, but it's even deeper than that. Um, if you have children that you're caring for or adult parents that you're caring for, life happens, and life happens regardless of what income comes into the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the caregiver then has to move the chess pieces to make sure that the impact of life is such that those who they care for, whether it be the child or the parent, is not affected. And so you talked about, your car insurance bill, getting a reminder your car insurance bill is due. So you can make a decision whether or not to pay the car insurance bill or not. You can pick up the phone, call the agent, have a conversation with the agent and say, okay, at what point will my insurance actually be canceled? At midnight on what day? And so you know how many days you can barter for, right? But if you are caring for a child or a parent and they have a health care need or something happens and you have to come up with dollars or resources to address it, and you're already, as Dr. Weaver said, a lot of us are living from paycheck to paycheck. And so there is no Peter to rob to pay Paul. You got to figure out, where are those dollars coming from? Because you're not working just for the sake of working. Many of us are working to care for others.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you don't have parents or dependents, if you're a single person, you still have to care for yourself.
And that's huge, and I can't wait to hear Dr. Weaver's thoughts on that, because going through this, the psychological aspect of not having the resources to care for the commitments that you've made or the things that you need is even deeper. Because if your mind is stressed about, how am I going to pay my car insurance? Oh my God, mortgage is due. What do you mean the water bill went up $50 this month? Where am I going? What's going on with my electric bill? And oh my God, of all the times, I just got a flat tire and I don't have a spare in the trunk.
Yeah. Dr. Vanessa, help us with that. Talk to me about how the dollars and cents reality spills over into the psychological impact.
Well, it's tremendous. I mean, people are on an emotional roller coaster right now. And it feels like a roller coaster that they have not been off of since January or February. And so you think about how much stress or emotional turmoil can an individual take that's unrelenting. I mean, this is going on and on and on. And so people it's like the psychological contract that many of them felt they had with the federal government has been broken. And they're trying to figure out, where am I going to land, or what is this organization that I committed a lifetime to? Who is it? What is the nature of it? And so folks are really, really struggling. And we had talked on an earlier show, Harold, about survivor's remorse, which speaks to individuals who have survived a layoff or a termination. They're the ones who are left in an organization. And many of them have a tremendous guilt about, now, why am I there versus the person I work that was next to me who's as competent and as committed as I am. And so they're feeling that guilt. They're feeling like the uncertainty of what's gonna happen next. They want to go to their supervisor to get some kind of sense of direction or some sense of some indication that this is going to be normalized. And many times the supervisors are as stressed as they are, because they're getting the pressure from on top to perform and the pressure from on the bottom. And so it could be a situation that's just pure chaos. And that chaos contributes to folks just feeling very vulnerable, feeling unprotected, feeling unclear. And now, they're feeling like they're in this ping pong match uh, this political match, this political game where they feel like they're the ball that's being tossed from side to side. And
Dr. Vanessa, you said something that struck me. And I don't think that in all of the time that you've been on this program, when we've talked about stresses on staff and workers, but we never really spoke about the stress on managers that also know, like you just said, they've got to perform. They've got to make sure that the people that they are managing continue to perform. But talk to me a little bit about that. How does a manager balance that kind of stress where your people have to do their jobs, but you also know what they're going through, but the people got to do their jobs, but I know what you're going through and I don't want to be too strict, but you still got to do your job. You see the ping pong. Talk to me about that.
They're not only having the pressure, they have something that they have a deliverable that they're being accountable for, to your point. And at the end of the day, is the deliverable met or not? And so then they have the pressure from on top to get the work done, and so they're trying to satisfy the person or the people that they report to from the top, and then also be responsive to the people who report to them. And they feel like they're in the middle and they're just being squeezed. And when I've talked to supervisors, they're under tremendous stress. And then there's also this psychological role that supervisors play where they feel they're the ones that are supposed to be able to take care of the people that report to them. They're the ones who should be able to give them answers. And many times they don't feel like they're getting any answers, and they definitely don't feel like they're being taken care of. And so it is tremendous. That's a tremendous weight that many supervisors are experiencing. And then it'll show up as them being very irritable, being very, snappy, not being really clear about how they really get their people refocused and aligned and feel like they have some kind of mission or purpose that they're driving for. And so it's really important for organizations, and I'm not going to get into the political discussion, which side I'm on, obvious, but it is tremendously important for the leadership to step back and say, how do we create an environment where we're taking care of the folks? Because the government still has to run at some point. It has to operate. And the supervisors are critical in operating. And so these organizations, these supervisors, these leaders need to just really elevate their understanding of the role they must play as leaders in supporting the supervisors and, of course, the people that work for them. You follow me? And versus just how do I show up politically in this matter?
Yeah. So Dr. Weaver, you said something. Because as I was listening to you, and you just hit on something, you said show up as leaders. Right. Because oftentimes what we have in the workplace, what I've seen is we've become a society of managers, not a society of leaders.
Well, we say that, and I agree with you, but people, even managers, perceive themselves as having a leadership responsibility in their area,
But how does that play out, particularly in this time? As you've just noted, they're boxed in, right? And they feel like they have to care for those members of their team, but they don't necessarily feel like they have that information. And so does that not create, because in every tragedy, there's an opportunity. Does this not create this opportunity for those of us that are looking at our managers to be leaders to become realistic in our thoughts and say, you know what, they can only give so much because they just don't have the capacity. And then for those managers who are feeling boxed in, does it not create an opportunity for them to look at their skill set and say, when I get to the other side, because there's going to be another side to this. It may be 2 weeks, it may be 30 days, But there's gonna be another side to this real soon.
You raise an incredibly important point because
So hold on, Dr. Vanessa. I'll let you make that point, but I
Okay.
do need to take a really quick break as we have so many issues to cover here. But I want to remind our listeners that you can hear this in every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. Don't forget, as I said earlier, there are resources that we have compiled for federal government workers who are in the midst of this shutdown crisis. You can also find that on our website on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is coming up next on WHUR-FM. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We are continuing our conversation about the financial and the emotional stress of the latest federal government shutdown. My guests are Dr. Vanessa Weaver, an organizational psychologist, and Muriel Gar, business and financial expert. Dr. Weaver, before the break, you were about to answer a question. Go right ahead.
Muriel asked a very incredibly important question, and that is, isn't this an opportunity? And that is so on point, because out of all of this tragedy, this is an opportunity for people to be able to step up and be the leader, provide their leadership, to say, what are the skills, understanding that I have about our deliverables, the understanding that I have about my colleagues and teams, and what's the leadership role that I can play in coalescing us to deal with, to meet the deliverable. And it might sound opportunistic, and it is, but it's an opportunity for you to step up and create even a deeper partnership with the person that you report to, your supervisor, or it's an opportunity for the supervisor to step out and say, okay, I can't wallow in this forever. How do I reshift and develop a mindset, which is so important now? Mindset speaks to what are the attitudes and assumptions that you operate on that define your world and define what choices you feel you have. And so it is incredibly important to identify what mindset you're in, and how do you create a mindset that allows for you to become more empowered and be impactful in the dysfunction that you're in.
Let me ask you this, Muriel, because when it comes to money, which is one of the reasons why you are consistently on this program, because you're often the smartest person in the room when it comes to money and finances as an expert. And I'm sure that people also in your immediate orbit and outer orbit also know that. So when you get the phone call this week from one of your good sister friends, and she says, Muriel, I'm in the midst of the shutdown. I work for the federal government. What would you recommend that I do? What are the first things that I should do? What do you tell them?
The first thing that, because I've already gotten those phone calls.
See?
Well, see, the first thing that I've said, which has surprised them, is I need you to prepare for being on the other side. And as Dr. Weaver said, as a man thinketh, so is he or she. So if we become consumed with it is me, then our ability to navigate the situation is adversely impacted. Then we're not thinking clearly, right? We're going to revert to whatever gives us comfort during the time of stress. So you're looking at me. You got that look on your face. And I heard Dr. Weaver say, like eating, or it could be shopping or spending.
Yes.
Because we know money's not coming, right? Our job is laid off. So what is it that gives me joy right now that I can use to relieve this pain? Right? Yeah. And so the first thing is, you got to come in. You're going to come out on the other side. Let's talk through this. No, this is not the time to go buy the bag that you wanted because you know it's going to make you happy. No. And I'm not going to tell you to stop your Starbucks. I'm not going to tell you to do the nickel and dime thing because that's a mental thing, right? What I'm going to say is, okay, let's look at our financial landscape. Who do we owe? How much we got to work with? And then I'm going to say, everybody we owe, we not going to pay. And then my sister friends are going to give me that same look, Harold, that you just gave me.
What?
And then this is what their response is going to be back to me. But girl, I worked hard to get my credit score. And I'm going to say, this is not the priority. And then they're going to say, you sound like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to say, I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth. What's important now is we've already established you don't have 6 months or 9 months reserve. You basically got 45 days of reserve. I need to make sure that you're taking care of what's your secured debt first. What's going to keep a roof over your head and what's going to give you transportation in the event you need to, and you should, go pick up a part-time job during the time of this layoff. So I'm going to have them, let's prioritize secured debt versus unsecured debt. Our unsecured debt is our credit cards, our gas cards, all those other cards. Our secured debt is something that's backed by collateral, the house, the car, or if we have rent, we need to treat that as secure because we need a place to lay our head. Mm-hmm. And those are the places where we're going to focus on actually sending money to. And we're going to call those individuals because we're going to let them know, hey, I've been impacted by this based on me being a client for X number of years. Can I send you a portion of the mortgage this month? And can you put the rest of it on the back end? Can I skip a payment on my car loan and put the rest of it on the back end? Now, this is based on you having a history where you've been paying on time. But
that part right there is important. And for the sake of this conversation, let us assume that you have been doing what you were supposed to do and being responsible. Go ahead, Muriel.
So we're going to negotiate payment options. Remember that lenders are people too.
Are they? Yeah. Sometimes we have to wonder, but go ahead.
But you know what? Sometimes people, what Meryl is saying is so important because, the fact that people reached out to her is one of the first steps that they could do when they're feeling overwhelmed and feeling just depressed, to step out of their own space and get someone that can help them be objective. And so I'm just ecstatic about the role you're playing because that, to me, this is a very healthy, albeit it can be painful in terms of the options you have to take. But the fact that your people have called you, number one, means they trust you, and they feel like you can connect to them. But they're stepping out of that kind of, oh, it's me, I can't move, I'm just feeling immobilized, and connect with somebody who can help you think through it.
And I will say this, and then Muriel, I do want you to continue. But even this morning, I received several email from a credit card company where I have a zero balance, but I've already received an email that started with, "We are with you during this crisis." So to your point about them being people, they already know, and if I know where you're going, Muriel, this is not happening in a vacuum. These companies, these financial institutions are well aware that even if you have been behaving responsibly, and now all of a sudden this crisis is here, it affects everyone, and as a result, they already know.
They already know and what they want to do. And now don't get it twisted, because it's all about the money. It's not about you and I. It's all about, as young folks say, the paper, the Benjamin, whatever. It's all about that. They want to create an environment. Let me restate it. It is important they continue to enhance an environment where you believe that they are looking out for your better good. Because we keep talking about, when you get on the other side of this, they need you to continue to be a customer, a happy customer, because as a happy customer in a debt environment, your debt creates revenue for them. Right. If they don't treat you well during this difficult time, then you're going to tell 3 people, who's going to tell 3 people, and you're going to say, I'm not going to do business with X no more, because when I went through the government shutdown, they knew it was impacting me. They wouldn't even work with me. And then you're pulling customers away. It's harder to get a new customer than it is to keep a current customer. So
when you say, Muriel, also, if you haven't always been up to date with your bills, I mean, you know, those organizations still would be willing to work with you. You might not get the top option, but maybe they have middle options or other options for people who have been maybe less disciplined.
Yes, Dr. Weaver, I would agree with you wholeheartedly, because they also know that we are now dealing with a more educated consumer. And what is, Muriel, what in the heck are you talking about? Consumers know that they always have an out. And that out is either you work with me or I can file bankruptcy.
That's right.
And then the lender knows they may get 10 cents on a dollar or 25 cents on a dollar, but they're not going to get all of it back. So let's create this win-win scenario. Yeah. But again, it starts with those lenders are represented by people. And more often than not, you would be surprised when you're calling and you explain to someone what's going on, the likelihood of the person on the other end being able to say, you know what, hold on a minute, Miss Gar, I got to come back. And when they come back, they say, you know, you just touched me because I was going through a similar situation.
My cousin, or my sister.
And they're saying, so I can't do this, but I've talked to my manager about your situation. And this is what my manager has authorized me to do. One of the things that we don't want to do, Harold, is we don't want to avoid the conversation.
That's right.
We don't want to be fearful of making the phone call. We don't want
to be rejected again.
To be rejected again.
I'm already feeling rejected. So now I don't want to put myself.
I don't want to be vulnerable to that, because I'm already vulnerable. But right. I need you. I need my girls. I need my fellas. I need you. And I say to them, I get it. I know. I'm with you. I know there's some JAs out there filling in however you want to, but I need you to step out of it. And this is what I need you to do. And it's important that you surround yourself with people who can have straight conversations with you, but also that are strong enough to be your sounding board. So when you have a bad call, they can call you and they can call me and say, Muriel, I'm like, I'm listening. Okay. I got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. You finish? Okay. Oh, you finished. Okay, cool. Now this is what we're going to do. This is next.
So let me go back to Dr. Vanessa for a moment, because one of the other things, these things are happening in the workspace, because already just today, for example, Metro has reported a significant drop in ridership because people for some federal agencies are staying home. But for those who are still going into the office, because there are some offices that, or agencies that are still funded for the next couple of weeks, maybe even the next month. But what should you as a federal government worker be paying attention to when you're talking about what you're seeing in your colleagues emotionally, Dr. Vanessa?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'll also say that there are some roles that are mandated to continue working through all of this. TSA, the military. I mean, some people, and that really makes them angry. And many, people can feel really frustrated and angry that they're mandated to work and not get paid. But it's important to know, as Muriel said, you're going to be on the other side. So you want to think about, how do I show up in the situation I'm in? How do I want to show up? I mean, what do I want people to think about me and know about me on the other side? And take this as an opportunity to say, okay, these are the things that I must do. I'm being, I have my job. I'm being held accountable. There is a federal requirement that when this debacle gets resolved, that I get paid. So eventually I'm going to get paid. So what is the type of mindset that I need to have in place that really positions me, number one, to do what I'm going to eventually get paid to do, but also to show up as a valued employee, someone that can be trusted, and someone that's in the trenches together. I would tell you that some of the strongest relationships to develop in an organization are with people who have been through some trauma, some kind of workplace trauma, some kind of situational trauma together. And so if you're able to be that proactive link or that proactive person that your supervisor can depend on, you're going to have a shared experience that's going to benefit you from a performance dimension as well as a relationship dimension when you get on the other side. So you have to think, how do I want to look? How do I want to show up? Do I want to show up as a person that just took off, that, absenteeism, that I started having an absenteeism problem? Or do I want to be seen as the person that showed up no matter what, that is dependable, that's reliable, that's focused on doing their job? Because that person that's perceived that way is going to be the person that's going to benefit the most from this shut off. And so it does really require this mindset adjustment from feeling like you're a failure or you've been mistreated, and therefore you're not going to if they're going to treat you this way, you're going to treat them that way. And so the same way. So it does require you to step back and say, what kind of mindset shift do I need to make to ensure that I am presenting myself as the type of employee that they don't want to ever lay off?
Okay.
Muriel, Harold, if I could just, the other part of that, and Dr. Weaver, I just love you, is what's on the inside radiates outward.
Yes.
And so it's amazing because we talked about the other side and all the opportunities that come about as a result of this. If we embrace what Dr. Weaver is talking about, it's not just how we show up in the workplace, but it's also how we show up in the environment, right? Getting to the workplace. And in those situations, there could be opportunities. I will share with you. I had a situation.
Quick, because I really want to get to some practical things. No, go ahead, share your point.
No, I was in a situation where I showed up in an environment, and an individual said to me, "Whenever you're here, call me, and whatever I can do for you." A stranger, but it was all about the energy that caused the connection.
Yeah. That, I mean, and that could apply to anything: family, work, church, Walmart,
Walmart greeter, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
We're just trying to pay the bills.
Right.
It can apply to anything, but this is the toughest situation to generate that. You know what I'm saying? That you're going to have to dig down deep and pull it up
to be positive
and be positive and not realistically positive. I'm not saying go there and be a cheerleader, like you're not like you're not really focused on what's happening, or you're not incorporating that. Being realistically positive, having those kind of conversations. You can say to your supervisor, look, I can imagine you're under a lot of stress. because we have to deliver such and such and such. And our team is not feeling very taken care of. They're demoralized. In fact, many of them seem to be experiencing workplace trauma. I get all of that's going on, but I think I have a plan, and there's a role I'm prepared to play to support you in helping all of us in the team move forward.
So let me ask you this, Muriel, two things. These are two questions back to back. But the first question is, as we know, federal government workers often have connected credit unions. When I say connected, in other words, those credit unions that that focus on financial services for federal government workers.
Your primary client are federal employees. Yes.
Right, exactly. So are those organizations, those financial service organizations, are those the first ones you should call?
If you have secured debt.
Right, exactly. If you have business with them or debt related business, are those the first ones?
No, Harold, I said secured debt.
Okay.
So if you got a credit union credit card, which is unsecured debt,
Mm-hmm.
and the credit union is not your primary financial institution where your paycheck would come first, then no. If the credit union is your primary institution where your paycheck would come, or the majority of your cash is on deposit in a checking or a savings account, yes, even though your debt is unsecured. That's because, and that applies to whether it's a credit union or a bank, that's because they have what's called the right of offset. If you don't pay them, they can seize funds in the bank account that you have with them to offset the debt that you owe them.
Oh my. Yeah, that would not be fun. That would not be fun at all.
So this is why when people call me, I say, let's look at the landscape. And we look at that. I like, where's your money? Do you owe people there at Bank X? If you owe people at Bank X, then we need to treat that as if it was secured debt, even if it's unsecured, because they have the right of offset.
Okay.
If you don't owe them, then it's another situation.
Next question as it relates to money and the next move. Is dipping into a retirement account too risky?
I knew you were going to go there.
Yeah, I mean, is that because a lot of people are thinking about that, I'm sure.
Oh, so you have an option of doing a hardship withdrawal. When you do a hardship withdrawal, that means that you are locked out from contributing for a period of 6 months or so. But you also know if you're taking money out of your retirement fund prior to the early withdrawal age, you're going to not only get hit with a federal tax and a state tax, you're also going to get hit with a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you can get a loan from your retirement funds, then I would encourage you to take out a loan. To consider taking out a loan. Understanding if you take out a loan, it's going to immediately go into repayment, but you're basically borrowing from yourself. You don't have an early withdrawal penalty. You don't have a federal tax, nor do you have a state tax.
Yeah. And that's why I asked, because you may have people who live paycheck to paycheck, but may have been good stewards over their retirement funding, where they have been contributing as much as possible for years and years and years. And these last few minutes, and I'll start with you, Dr. Vanessa. This seems to be the new normal over the past 10 years or so, where we have seen these shutdowns. Sometimes they last a day, as we know. 2018, it lasted for 34, 35 days. That was frightening for a lot of people. What do you believe this has done to the psyche relevant to the historic promise of that good government job?
Well, I think it's changed that, obviously. I mean, the psychological contract that many government employees felt like they entered into with the government. It's a secure job. It was relatively little layoffs. One could develop an identity from that as African Americans. For many of us or our parents, this was a status kind of a situation, because I got a good government job. I have roles that I never imagined that as Black people we would have. And so all of that now is disrupted. And so people have to now redefine what is this working with and being in partnership with the federal government going to look like going forward. So there's got to be a lot of redesign work. People got to really rethink now this contract, because clearly they're not going to feel like they're protected, and that this is a psychological thing that they got, relationship that they got that's oftentimes unspoken but understood. That's not there anymore. So they have to approach that job differently, how they negotiate. As you know, many of the unions, the collective bargaining agreements that the unions created for their members, those now have been dissolved in many of the unions. Many of the agencies now. So people don't even feel that they have the protection of the unions. And so they have to approach and think about this relationship with the federal government if they go back, or if they decide they're going to enter into a new role. They got to think about how that contract got to be established differently, and how do I psychologically prepare for that relationship going back or a new relationship.
Mm-hmm. Muriel, I'll let you have the last minute for final comment on managing your finances in this shutdown crisis.
The first thing I want any of our listeners to do is to just think your mental and emotional well-being is more important than your debt. And I know for those who followed me for years, they're probably scratching their head and saying they find that hard to believe. But if you are not mentally and emotionally stable, your ability to earn money, to negotiate contracts, because debt is a contract, is going to adversely be impacted. I also want you to remember that what's going on in your job is not a reflection of who you are. You didn't do this. It was done to you and at you. Don't absorb it as if it is yours, as if you're inefficient. You're not a good worker. You're not a good wage earner. You can't care for your family. I also want you to remember that stuff happens. Credit can be fixed, but life cannot.
That's right.
And so focus on the long-term goal. Now, do we need to pay our bills? Yes. But the old folks say you can't get blood out of a turnip. If you ain't got it, you can't pay it. Get on the phone. Have a conversation with the individuals who you owe. Those who respect you, understand you, treat you with empathy and compassion, those are the ones you're going to work with. And when you come out of this, those are the ones you're going to do more business with. Those that disrespect you, want to make you feel like you're less than, know that you have rights. You can still file a complaint if someone calls you a deadbeat and disrespects you. When you call, you still have rights under the law. Make sure you note that and go back. Pay what you can. Do not, I repeat, do not liquidate all of your assets so that you have nothing.
Okay. I'm going to have that be the last word, Dr. Vanessa Weaver and Muriel Gar. Thank you both so very, very much. I appreciate your wisdom and your insight. Let us hope that, dare I say, trouble won't last always. So let us hope that is the case. Ladies,
for having this conversation. I just commend you for being so responsive.
Well, thank you so much.
Your audience.
I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can help some people with this. That is the Daily Drum for this Wednesday, October 1st. I'm Harold Fisher.